All right, so this is the practice quiz for the second set of Friday quizzes, and you'll be seeing this for the next couple of weeks. And so problem number one is solve with factoring. And so when we say solve with factoring, the first critical step is to actually factor this. And in all cases with these problems, I mean, there's lots of ways to factor. But what I'm really driving at here is you remembering that one way to factor is to find a common term, to look at the things you have there and say, well, what do these have in common? And of course, they have an x, and so you can factor that out. If we take the x out of x squared, we're left with x, and the x out of 3x leaves us with 3. So this is now factored, and at this point, I'm equal to 0, and so whenever I've got two things that are multiplied together and I get 0, one of them has to be 0. So either x is 0, because 0 times anything is 0, or x plus 3 is 0, and if you solve this, you'll get x equal minus 3. And so there's your two solutions. X is 0 and x is negative 3. Okay, for the second one, we're looking to find the discriminant. And the discriminant is the part of the quadratic formula that's in the square root, and it's the b squared minus 4ac. So you have to understand here that a is 3, right? B is 2, and c is negative 1. The sign goes with it here. And if we do b squared minus 4ac, we get 2 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 1, which is 2 squared is 4, minus, and 4 times 3 times negative 1 is negative 12. So 4 minus negative 12, that's really plus a positive. We end up with 16 as the discriminant, and so that's the answer. And it would mean that we'd have two real number solutions, but I don't ask you to go that far. I just want to know what the discriminant actually is. So number 3 then deals with multiplying some imaginary numbers, and we're going to want to employ FOIL here. First, inner, outer, last. So if I go first, I'm going to get 2. And then minus 1i, and then plus 4i, and finally minus 2i squared. Minus 2i squared. And we're going to combine like terms. The key thing, though, here that we have to remember is that I squared is negative 1. So this right here is really negative 2 times negative 1, and that is really negative 2. So negative 2 combines with 1 to give me negative 1, and then these guys combine negative 1i and positive 4i to give me plus 3i. So we're doing FOIL, but we have to simplify, and the key simplify step, the one that we don't see come up in other areas of FOIL, is that I squared is actually the negative 1. I squared is negative 1. All right, so the next one, solve using square roots. In this one, I really am driving at getting you to see, I guess, to complete this problem and to actually get the final answers to it, and I'll show you what I mean. I already have a square by itself here. That's already all alone, so I'm going to square root both sides. And square root cancel, so I end up with x plus 2, that's because we had a cancellation here, equals plus or minus 4. And it's plus or minus 4 because I know what the square root of 16 is. I know the square root of 16 is 4. Now, at this point, x isn't by itself. I have to minus 2 from both sides, and so I end up with x equals negative 2 plus or minus 4. But at this point, I can go further because I know how to combine 2 and 4. So I have negative 2 plus 4, which gives me one answer of 2, and I have negative 2 minus 4, which gives me negative 6. So 2 and negative 6, I feel like those are a little hard to read. So 2 and negative 6 are my two answers. Negative 2 plus 4, and then negative 2 minus 4. Finally, find c needed to complete the square. So basically, I want to make this a perfect square trinomial, and this process couldn't be easier. Take your middle term, cut it in half, and then square it. So the middle term is 10. 10 cut in half is 5, and 5 squared is 25. So x squared plus 10x plus 25 would be a perfect square trinomial, and if I was solving, I would keep going, but I'm just asking you to find the c needed to complete the square. So that's it. Hopefully you'll do well on Friday's quiz.